Hi, welcome to the Science of Building Health, Building Muscle and Losing Fat online certification course. I'm just so excited to be able to share with you some of the incredible information that I had the privilege of learning during my 35-year career, as a high-level strength and conditioning coach, as well as being a nutritionist. And this is a course that I felt that I just had to get out to the fitness industry to share this knowledge, to get much higher quality trainers out there. And, this course literally is on the back of my career. One of the most important things you'll learn in this course, here's the course itinerary there, and I'll go through that briefly now. But it's, to be able to interpret lab tests. And that was probably one of the most important moments in my career. But you need a lot of knowledge before you get there. And so I kind of accumulate all that into this incredible course. Well, I believe it's an incredible course anyway. The course is in webinar format. There are 15 lessons, very sort of proactive, interactive in the webinar itself. The feedback on those doing the course has just truly been outstanding. We've got a lot of top trainers on the course, right away through to beginners who are just starting out on their journey. It's there for everyone to learn from. So I think what I'll do, I'll just sort of briefly take you through the course itinerary, and you can click on for further details. But lesson 1 is on achieving safe, effective, and long-term fat loss. And, I'm privileged. I'm just going to scan down here first because I want you to sort of get a little bit about my background. Obviously, you can click up there, up in the sort of top tabs, a bit more about my background. But a lot of the course, I had the privilege, I've written 4 books. I said I've spent 35 years, as a top-end S&C coach, as well as a nutritionist. I've made every mistake in the book, trust me. And I mean every mistake in the book. And as you know, that's how you kind of learn. This book here, The Science of Fat Loss, is a 730-page book. That took over 10 years to acquire the information on that. There was 10 habits in that, but I've since updated it significantly to include it into this. I've sort of included the best from all these 4 books into this course, along with an incredible amount of courses that I've done, and taking the best from all those courses, as well as obviously all the practical experience I've been really fortunate to gain, right at the coalface of top-end sport. So that took 10 years to put together. Then you got my Ultimate Strength and Conditioning book, which is a story about my sort of life as an S&C coach and how I went over to many places. I traveled the world. I was the first to work with many of the pioneers in the world, from the late Charles Poliquin, the late Charlie Francis. I was the first at Westside. This book is, a lot of the work is based on Westside. Not many trainers have heard about Westside, but it's the world's strongest gym. And I did multiple internships there and became the first European to also qualify in the Westside Barbell Principles. I then wrote a book on the ketogenic diet and high intensity interval training. And no doubt the ketogenic diet is effective for short-term fat loss, but to be honest with you, I now believe it's one of the worst diets that you can follow. And I kind of really explain all those mechanisms in the book. And then I had the opportunity of selling a company a couple of years ago where I could then also study again full-time. And I wrote this book, which was Stop Killing Yourself with Your Knife, Fork and Thoughts. And that was 750 pages. And there were, I believe there's 6 chapters in there, but I really wanted to understand evolutionary nutrition, because there's so many myths out there. What is the optimum diet for us to consume to achieve optimum health? And I found some incredible stuff in there, I can tell you. And the second chapter was on why is 1 in 2 people in the West going to be diagnosed with cancer? And I really did find the answers on why that, which I share with you in this incredible course. Then I went into dementia. The 3rd chapter was on dementia. The 4th was on cardiovascular disease. You'll find many of your clients, when you know how to interpret the lab markers, are literally ticking time bombs. And I don't even say that in an over-exaggerated way. I've seen everything, and I'll kind of go back onto that in a second, and then I really go into what is really driving the diabetes and obesity epidemic. And you'll be surprised, there's not a single, there's so many multiple causes, which I'll kind of go through in the itinerary now, that it really is, you need a lot of knowledge to get people lean and healthy today. It's not simply a case of eating less, exercising more. It just doesn't work in 95% of people. And then emotions and thoughts, I kind of really, there's a whole webinar, a whole lesson lasts about 5 hours where, how your emotions affect your biochemistry. So I thought I'd just sort of scan down there just to show you that briefly, because I said lesson 1 is all on why reducing calories fail for safe, effective and long-term fat loss. And there's incredible data in there, which, I thought I knew it when I thought I had it sussed, I should say, when I wrote The Science of Fat Loss. They said it took 10 years to get that information. And no, I wasn't nowhere near. I had quite a lot more information, which you'll get in this course. And then lesson 2 then is how our brain is the only organ in the body that actually determines how much fat we carry. And I'll go into like the hormonal sort of signaling pathways to the brain via leptin and ghrelin, and how these hormones can get disturbed, and what that will mean eventually is that the brain doesn't get the signal that you're full, and then you just keep eating. And the food industry have done some real nasty tricks to override the brain's capacity to get these satiety signals where it says, look, I've had enough, don't eat anymore. Because from an evolutionary perspective, we weren't meant to be fat little hunter-gatherers. We couldn't survive on the prairie. So there's a number of mechanisms in place. And I can tell you now that that lesson is truly revolutionary, and it is not out there. I can say that for a fact. Then I go into insulin in lesson 3 as a full a good couple of hours just on the hormone insulin, and how the myth that carbohydrates are the primary cause of type 2 diabetes. It's not. I'll tell you in this lesson what the primary macronutrient is that's driving insulin, and also what micronutrients, what nutrient deficiencies are creating a massive insulin resistance type 2 diabetes surge. In the UK, for example, every 3 minutes somebody's diagnosed with type 2. Type 1, as we know, is an autoimmune disorder. And I go into some of the very surprising causes of type 1 diabetes as well, which people don't want to know. So there is, it's an incredible lesson, because insulin can either make you really, really lean and muscular, or it can make you look like a Swiss ball with legs. So you really want to get onto this side. You can't build muscle without insulin, and that's how important insulin is. But you can't store fat without insulin, so you need to get it on its side. And then detoxification, and the role that plays in not only in fat loss, but also in our ability to build muscle. We are literally swimming in a sea of toxins today. The good thing is with the blood work, you can see all these markers and how like insulin is working and how effective your brain is. Is your body in too much of a calorie deficit that you've moved into fight or flight? And on the detoxification pathway, how loaded are you with toxins? How effective are you getting rid of toxins via perspiration, respiration, urination, and defecation? So you can look at kidney markers, you can look at liver markers, you can look at bowel detoxification markers. And there's also a certain blood markers in particular as well, which will see how high your antioxidant sort of capacity is, because the toxins are interfering with hormones, they're interfering with the immune system. They sit on endocrine receptors, hormonal receptors. They can stimulate obesity without any excess calories being in the system. They can also decrease like a real sort of muscle building fat loss hormones like the thyroid and testosterone in particular by inhibiting those hormones from stimulating their receptors. So there's a massive underestimation on the effect that the toxins are having on our inability to build muscle, because it also sort of accelerates sarcopenia, muscle wastage, but also it really drives cancer as well. It drives all the diseases. And in the course, you'll find out what I had the great privilege of understanding. And trust me, it took a long time to really understand this, that all these diseases really, whether it's cancer, heart disease, diabetes, obesity, diabetes, autoimmune disorders, etc., there's only 3 primary causes, and that's nutrient deficiencies, toxic overload, and chronic long-term stress. And I really go into great depth in how to recognize them from lab work, and then more important, then how to reverse them. Then I go into, there's an incredible lesson on digestion, where, from sort of enzymes in our mouth through to, like, people, there are a lot of people that I do the blood work on have low stomach acid called hypochlorhydria. And many reasons for that. You could have Helicobacter pylori, which over 55% of the world population has got, 40% in the UK. I see it very regular with my clients. That can eat away at the stomach wall. You can end up having B12, iron deficiencies, and then there's a domino effect, and also where you can't break down protein efficiently, and then you become malnourished. But the problem's in your stomach, so when you can recognize these lab markers, it's like, holy shit, this is just incredible, and then also looking at the effectiveness of the pancreas, not only from insulin and glucagon production, but absolutely 98% of the pancreas is involved in enzyme production. And you will find on the stool, there's an incredible marker there that will indicate the health of your pancreas. When that marker is low, you need pancreatic assistance via enzymes, and also, much more consciousness on chewing food, eating more lightly steamed foods, putting a little bit more raw food in just to get the enzyme load back up. And, and I go into like bowel health, intestinal permeability, what drives that, because that drives disease in the body, but it also really lowers our ability to also get lean and build muscle, because there's a lot of inflammation that can come through the intestinal wall. There's a lot of inflammation come through the bowels via dysbiosis in the microbiome. So I kind of give you an incredible amount of information on how to ensure from mouth to anus that gastrointestinal tube is functioning optimally, and how to test for it as well, because that's when a lot of people's problems are. And then nutritional immunology, very few people will speak on things like this, but you can't be, there's so many people who are so ill today. And as I said, the driving factor are the nutrient deficiencies, the toxic overload, and the chronic long-term stress. And all this will crush the immune system. And the immune system has an incredible requirement for certain nutrients, which I speak to in great depth. I have studied immunology. I've studied also the gut microbiome in great depth. Everything that I'm going through, I've done the courses on as well. I'm not kind of trying to wing it. I'm not that clever. So the nutritional immunology for me is along with the nutritional cardiology, I'll speak on in a second, are genuine lifesavers. Now, the reason I've got them in there is because that's why the course is called Build Health, Build Muscle, Lose Fat. I mean, what I've discovered is, that every one of us want to be sort of lean and healthy, but from a leanness perspective, the most important thing we can do is to optimize health. When we optimize health, we can train with much more vigor, with much more intensity, and the body recovers more, more quicker. But so many people, as I said, they're so low in all these nutrients, they're so high in toxins, the immune system becomes depressed, the digestive system is inhibited. You ain't going to gain nothing from it. You can train as hard as you want. It's like, you're swimming against the tide. So the nutritional immunology and the nutritional cardiology, they really are two synergistic sort of lessons together, because the cardiology one, I really go into not only how to build healthy blood and how you can recognize that on a blood panel, how healthy is the blood, how much oxygen is the blood carrying, what are the size of the red blood cells, which can indicate it. Have you got a B12 or a folate anemia? Have you got an iron deficiency anemia? And anemia can also come, surprisingly, again, from low stomach acid, Helicobacter pylori in particular. And I kind of show you how to identify those markers, and also why iron supplementation in excess is so detrimental to health, and it doesn't work. And I'll explain why that is the case. But also on the nutritional cardiology as well, I go into why cholesterol has zero correlation with cardiovascular disease, but what markers you really need to look for that are real red flags. And in the many years that I've been doing blood work, I believe that I've helped many people alleviate a potential cardiovascular event sooner rather than later. So you know, you'll find the big players for driving cardiovascular disease, surprisingly enough, are things like poor thyroid function, low testosterone levels, also low estrogen levels. You're looking at also things like homocysteine levels, eye sensitivity, C-reactive protein. These markers are very rarely tested, by the way, by the medical system. And there's other markers as well, which are very accurate, something called lipoprotein phospholipase A2, which is a marker for sort of plaque initiation. You know, so again, and the ironic thing is, I said, cholesterol, I only ever worry, if I'm honest, when I see low cholesterol. I never worry when I see high cholesterol. Cardiovascular disease is driven by inflammation, nutritional deficiencies, toxic overload, and stress. And I can tell you, it's a life-saving webinar, in my opinion. And then lesson 8 and 9, wow, I really go into incredible depth on, in lesson 8, I look at testosterone, testosterone, cortisol, and DHEA, dihydroepiandrosterone, which is the most abundant steroid in the human organism. And it's a bit like antagonist to cortisol. DHEA is an anti-stress, cortisol is a stress. They're both essential. You just need everything in the sweet spot, in the optimum range. And testosterone, well, male and female, you never want low levels of that. And in the female, you'll see, which I see through the blood work I'm doing, you will see it in quite a few cases, females with high testosterone, mainly due to polycystic ovary syndrome. And I really go into, in lesson 9, in fact, I go into polycystic ovary syndrome, because it's so common now in the Western world, on how to manage that much more efficiently. There's some incredible science on that. You know, so lesson 8, as I said, is on testosterone, cortisol, and DHEA, on how to really get all those 3 hormones in the sweet spot. And lesson 9 is on progesterone, estrogen, and prolactin. You know, and then now you can also look on the blood panels then and really interpretate blood work, because again, it's a real science. Lab work is a real science. And then lesson 10 is really on the thyroid and the mitochondria. And they do work synergistically together. They really are the drivers of our the thyroid hormone is a real driver of metabolism. The mitochondria converts 95% of our food into energy, but they are so vulnerable to toxins, especially pesticides and heavy metals. And they have such an incredible need for certain nutrients, especially magnesium, as you get older as well, coenzyme CoQ10, the B vitamins, you know, and again, all these are easily tested on the blood work. And I mean, in 100% of people, for example, I see with chronically low magnesium, which has a huge effect on the mitochondria, as well as insulin metabolism, and as well as heart function as well. You know, I'd probably say magnesium is the most important mineral for the heart. And then, as I said, so I kind of, and the thyroid, there's so many things that can devastate the thyroid. You know, so many toxins, from like fluoride, chlorine, bromides. Mercury is a real inhibitor of the thyroid. It sits on the iodine receptor, blocks iodine uptake. And then there's so many things then that can attack the thyroid. So you have so many things that can inhibit it. And also then when you start looking at things like Hashimoto's and Graves' disease, which are autoimmune diseases, there are some really surprising factors which can accelerate those particular diseases. And I see this very, very often in the client side test who have no idea, by the way, they've got any, you know, like they've got an autoimmune disorder, because the medical system very rarely tests it. And also there's other markers like reverse T3, which is a marker that will inhibit free T3 from being active, which is the most sort of biologically active of the thyroid hormones. And that would prevent that. So there's a few markers that you really need to know if you're looking at the thyroid hormone. And also with the mitochondria, as I said, there are many things that can slow that down. So if you've got low thyroid and poor functioning mitochondria, you're not going to get results. You're going to have chronic fatigue. This is the same as the hormones. If you're low in estrogen, as a female, for example, you're going to store a lot more of your weight in your belly. And in a male, if you're low in testosterone, you will store a lot more in your belly. So I'll kind of explain all those pathways as well. And then, you know, if they low, how to get them high, and if they're high, how to get them back down to normal. And then like lesson 11, you know, the real importance of, you know, I mean, if you could put sleep, I should say, in a bottle, that would be the best selling bottle in the world. If you get sleep right, you'll always regenerate, you know, you will reduce body fat, you'll increase growth hormone. You need to know, you know, like how many hours you need to stop eating before bedtime, you know, why you should come off your sort of tablets and your, you know, when I say tablets, you know, like the sort of bright light, blue light, come away from the phones, etc. Allow melatonin to naturally increase, which is our natural sleep hormone. You know, so when you can get growth hormone and melatonin optimum, and these decline quite significantly after the age of 40 anyway, you know, you can keep lean, you can keep building muscle, and you can keep, you know, the immune system and melatonin, for example, there's an incredible relationship there. So, and I go into, you know, sort of optimum doses if you are going to take melatonin, etc. as well. That's a real important lesson. And then lesson 12, it's on like why we need a certain amount of protein per meal. And ironically, as we get older, why we need more protein per meal when people are starting to eat less. And, you know, I kind of go into something known as the mTOR pathway, which is which is an abbreviation, I should say, for the mammalian target of the rapamycin, which is the most important pathway for muscle protein synthesis. I explain what activates that, why you need a certain amount of protein per meal, why you need resistance training, especially as you age. You need resistance training all the time, but when you get past 40, the game changes quite a bit. When you get past 50, you got to put your gloves on and it's ready to go. And I also talk about things like myostatin. Myostatin is a protein molecule. It's a myokine. It is our greatest inhibitor of muscle growth. We increase myostatin as we age. And I go into some of the incredible research has shown how to lower myostatin. So if you can upregulate mTOR, lower myostatin, wow, you're in the game, you know. And then optimum sort of protein intake, as I said, optimum carbohydrate intake as well. Carbohydrates do not make you fat, folks. That's a news flash. You know, I kind of go into why you need a certain amount of carbs, you know, to allow the most effective way for us to produce energy. But also I have to say as well, which, you know, in lesson 5, when I talk about the digestive system, starch, for example, the gut microbiome absolutely thrives off starch, and I'll show you all the beneficial effects of that. But we absolutely need a certain amount of carbohydrate for so many reasons that I talk about in lesson 12. And then I talk about there are certain supplements which are game changers, and there's a lot of supplements on the market which are total nonsense as well. But I'll only give you what I believe is the right ones. And then in lesson 13, you know, very few people, because I should say also in lesson 12 as well, I go into the physiology on how we actually lose fat, okay, how we burn fat. And the reason why I've gone into that as well, because 99% of people visit a gym, from my experience anyway, you know, they want to get leaner, they want to lose fat, and they want to gain a bit of muscle, even if it's a female, you know, we all want to get leaner. But 99% of trainers, from my conversations with them, have no idea how these physiological pathways take place. And that's what you're going to learn in this course. In lesson 12, I go into how the body actually loses fat. There are 2 enzymes in particular, which are big players, along with certain hormones. And then lesson 13, and how we actually build muscle. What is the process? And also, like, why can some people just look at a weight and gain muscle? And some people can train so hard and not gain nothing. And wow, when you find out the truth, it's quite incredible. But there is hope. There is hope for them, for the real sort of hard gainers. So I go into you know, the most effective way to stimulate muscle growth, you know, and also how we physiologically do build muscle. And also there are, again, certain hormones which are crucial for that to take place. And very often those hormones are so low in people at all ages. That's another reason why people struggle so much to get anything out of their training. Lesson 14 is about a 5-hour lesson on program design. I mean, I was very fortunate. You know, I literally wrote tens of thousands of programs in my career, you know, in multiple sports. But there's a real fundamental thing that you need to understand with program design. But what I go into this lesson in great depth as well is, like, what are the optimum number of sets for muscle growth? What are the optimum number of reps, time, rest periods, tempo, the speed of the movement? how often should you rotate the exercise, do supersets, pre-exhaust, triple drops, etc.? Do they really make any difference? Because a lot of this research hasn't long been out there, if I'm honest with you. When I was a strength coach, it wasn't there. A lot of it was just gym bro talk. So it was brilliant for me to go back into the research and looking at things like do bands and chains work, when, I used them with incredible success in my time as a top strength coach in rugby. I saw literally miracles happening, but what did the data say? And how do you interpret the data? Because a lot of the research they do in strength work is on nerdy little students, who can just about, squat their dicks. So, what is the research compared to the real world? And I really go into that as well, because I had that opportunity of seeing it right at the coal face. Yeah, there's some incredible, honest. It's just incredible. I mean, it was just such a privilege. It actually took me a full year just to upload the course information. And that was literally working, every day, for hours and hours on end, just uploading. It was just incredible. And then mindset for success and as well. And that's a real, I think it's, it's like a domino effect, these lessons are the reason why it's lost. Because if you don't get it right, then none of the other lessons are really going to have what the impact they should. Because like if you've got a client or yourself, for example, who had a lot of childhood trauma, you're going to be amazed on the correlation between childhood trauma and the sort of manifestation of many diseases. How you can, overcome that childhood trauma with some of the information I give in this, how our thoughts are affecting our biochemistry, and I always use the analogy of like when you meet someone for the first time and you fall in love with them, you haven't swallowed a pill, but you've created this incredible chemistry where, you feel like you can walk on water. A couple of weeks later, they do something to you or something else happens, somebody cuts you up at a roundabout in a car, and you create a chemistry which is so angry and so venomous. And again, you haven't swallowed a pill. You created the chemistry through your reaction and through your thoughts. Now, the reason why I'm saying that is because the science is just so, so full on your chemistry. Your thoughts will determine also your disease risk, so childhood trauma, your perceptions to things will determine how the DNA function, how the cells function. So it all sort of ties in together. It's some incredible, I only put the scientifically factual stuff in, but there's some incredible sort of case studies in there, which helped me massively from also having quite a traumatic childhood and sort of struggling for most of my life. So, I mean, it was like, I wrote that chapter almost for myself, but I'm sure it will help you. And just to sort of, as I said, you can read the testimonials, just some amazing testimonials there. We got a load more testimonials as well, but I think there's enough there for you to hopefully, at least have some interest. Who is the course for? As it says in the tin there, personal trainers, high performance strength and conditioning coach, nutritionists, I've got 2 doctors on the course. Doctors need to do this course so badly because they generally have not got a clue on health and nutrition. This course will change their practice, but unfortunately, their practice not on purposely, but is driven by pharmaceutical drugs. You can click on there to see just a course introduction. I believe then this is a certificate that is actually worth the paper it's written on. I mean, under my desk, you're honest, I've got hundreds of certificates. Most of them you just tick in a box. That you need that certificate, you get it, you need that. This is a certificate. If you pass this, I'm telling you now, give me a call. I'll take you out for lunch. I mean, this is just it'll be worth something. It'll be one of the very few certificates in the fitness industry that's worth something. And I said, on the blood work, then, as I said, I go into this in great depth in the blood work, and I use these case studies here. This is the lady that sort of changed why I wanted to do blood work, because this was a before and after picture. I never do before and after pictures. It was somebody that I was consulting for, and he was training Melinda there, and we did, like, that was 28 days, and before that for a Miss Fitness competition, but we didn't realize that Melinda had, I think it was stage 3 breast cancer. I believe she's had both breasts removed now, but if we had run all the blood work and done the stool work, we would have spotted that, and hopefully we could have helped her sooner. And this is another interesting story. This is also actually another friend of mine, his girlfriend, and she's got a huge fibroid there. So we run all the blood work on that, we run the stool. You can click on there and it'll go into the full story on her sort of testimonial. And you know, I think it was within about it was less than 12 months. It was about 12 weeks, to be honest with you. It had gone, you know, that was it. It was from 12 weeks to that. And I explained the nutritional program, but the blood work, I could see it straight away in the blood and the stool. I knew exactly what she needed. I didn't treat the fibroid, I just treated her, you know. And you'll also read, like, this is an interesting one as well. There was this gentleman who is a PhD pharmacist. You know, he's patented dozens of drugs, to be honest. He's a super smart guy. And you can read, his was a real interesting profile as well. I mean, he'd spent thousands trying to solve his issue. And, you know, looked at his blood work. I saw 2 markers that were really out. We focused on that, and that was his problem cured. I was fortunate then to have done all the blood work with Eddie Hall, who's just an awesome guy. You know, from 2015 to now, leading all the way through the World's Strongest Man when he did the 500k deadlift and getting ready for his next fight as well. And the blood work has just been incredible on adjusting his nutrition plan, his supplement plan, and also his training as well. And also, I did a bit of work with Martin Ford, did his blood work as well. And you can see some of the stuff, because I'll teach you in lesson 14 some of these, like how I train people, whether it's, you know, Mrs. Jones down the road who's 47, who's coming into perimenopause, having exercised for 15, 20 years, how to approach her, or through to somebody who who can really go full on. But the blood and stool work often tells you how hard you can push people, by the way. And a lot of my information, especially in lesson 14, I always give credit where credit due. I mean, I was really privileged, in fact, to be mentioned in the West Side Barbell autobiography by Louis Simmons, the godfather of strength training, just a genuine genius of a guy. And the reason why I mention this again is not blowing smoke at my own arse. I was very fortunate. I was just everything that I've learned is in this course. I give you absolutely everything, you know. So, you know, and also, you know, I've trained a lot of female athletes as well. So I don't think if you're a female doing this, this is a male dominant course. Nothing could be further from the truth. So you can read some of the testimonials there. And as I said, these are the books I've written. Trainers from all over the world have come and interned me. I've trained top athletes like Amir Khan many years ago, and you can read all that. And there's all the testimonials from the Science of Fat Loss book. Yeah, so if you want to do a course that genuinely, in my opinion, will change your career and your life, I can say with total clarity, the Science of Building Health, Building Muscle, and Losing Fat online certification course will absolutely deliver that. Okay, if you need any more information, just message me and I'll get back to you. Cheers, guys.